So we have Kirk James. He's an assistant clinical professor at the NYU Silver School of Social Work. He completed his doctorate from the School of Social Policy and practiced at the University of Pennsylvania on May 2013. His dissertation, The Visual Epidemic in Social Work Academia, examined the complex phenomenon of mass incarceration through a historical and contemporary lens. He concluded by developing curricula for master level students to increase awareness, activism, and holistic practice in the milieu. The short version? So his expertise ranges in mass incarceration, with race, class, power, privilege, and basically critical pedagogy. And of course, he's a social worker. We have the brother Five Mualamak, who's a father, activist, and human rights defender. Since his return to society, I basically copy and pasted all his And he's also the co-founder of Incarcerated Nation, which is a collective group of people who have been incarcerated, organizing and basically advocating, and he's a leader amongst them. This is what he does. And we also have Carlos Evans. He's a father of three, speaker and representative of the New York NYU Prison Education Program. He's one of the program's first students, and he has recently participated in a documentary entitled After Now, where he talks about his experience of transitioning back into society while being a father after prison.
The people that are most represented in the system are black men, right? 1 in 3 black men will at some point in their lives end up in the criminal justice system. Women of color are the fastest growing prison population, right? For folks that have seen 13, you know implicitly the link between the 13th Amendment, right? It's like we're going to end slavery except for those that are convicted of crimes. Surprise, surprise, you have black codes, laws that essentially criminalize every facet of blackness, right? And then you have convict leasing system right now, so folks are essentially put back in the same plantations in which they were enslaved. Yet, what we don't talk about, right, is the continuation, not only the continuation of oppression, right, but the continuation of the destruction of black families, right? So when we're going to have this conversation, I really want to ground this conversation in a historical perspective, right? There's so much like trauma in our communities, especially between, you know, black men, black women, men of color, et cetera, right? And I oftentimes hear, I had students who said to me once, you know, black men hate black women. And that really hurt me, right? Because it's like it wasn't put in the historical context. Like she didn't understand the historical context of why we're where we're at today. So I don't want to have this conversation and just make it seem like, you know what, black men are in jail and they're not being present to their children, right? Like I think we should really understand what these issues are. And something else that's really important in this conversation, as Five begun to speak about, is just really the trauma, right? As someone who does this work, one of the things that I like to talk about is my own experiences, right? So it's not just academic research, right? But it's my own experiences. 94, 8, 63, 25, right? So I went to prison at 18 years old, you know, a child, right? Essentially a child that went to prison and ended up having a child at 19 while in prison. And to this day, one of the hardest things for me was actually calling my mother from Central Booking to tell my mother that I'd been arrested. Because I know as a parent, right, that the hardest thing that you can do, the hardest thing you can experience is being in a position where you can't care for your child, right? And to me, that was the hardest thing that like I went through, right? Like, and I feel like, you know, oftentimes this in the last few years, right, we've been a lot more vulnerable. We meaning like black men, right? You know, shout out to Jay-Z and everyone else that's making that possible. But you know, we don't really talk about that. We really haven't spoken about just the hurt and the harm that these situations have caused, right? Because of the ideas of the constructed masculinity, right? This is how we're supposed to act. This is how we're supposed to behave. So we're really here to really break that down and just to have an honest conversation, right? This is a really intimate space, so we're going to talk for a little bit, but I would love for us to talk as well, right? And I think even in having this conversation, the numbers, you can throw out the numbers, right? Because those numbers aren't really representative, right? The collateral consequences of mass incarceration are so innumerable that there's no way we can adequately capture that, right? We talk about 1.7 to 2 million, 2.3, million children who have a parent in prison, right? I believe that number is tremendously more. And when we think about the impact as well, right, the impact on families of incarceration, there's no way we can adequately measure that. So tonight we're just going to have a conversation, and maybe, because we just saw that video, right, I think it's like, let's honor that, right, and how did that come about, and maybe speak about what it was like for you, and we can just go down the line, right, and just kind of like what it was like for you to be incarcerated and not be there, and
Thank you all for coming out. My name is Five Mualim Ak, and since I've returned to society, I have tried to create systems and projects and events and mediums that people can relate to the collateral consequences of incarceration. One of the most challenging has been the time lost. Most of the co-founders of my organization have done over 20 to 30 years apiece. They have no relationship with their children. That time gap is what I feel every day on a daily basis as a parent. When you come home and you're like, you need to get your homework, it's like, where was you for the last 12 years? Well, you can tell me about doing what I have to do, right? So it's like, you have to then earn your space as a parent. And I knew that I had to create something. One of the first things I did when I came home was I did the StoryCorps about solitary for the Library of Congress, because they didn't have anybody speaking about it from experience. And I went back to StoryCorps and asked them if we could start a project about father and son, and they agreed to it. The hard part was I wasn't prepared for what I was going to hear. It started from actually my younger son, Shaquille. We did an article in Solitary Watch. And at the time when I came home, we wasn't seeing eye to eye, and he wanted to write his part, and I write my part, and the editor put it together. That article just broke me down. It broke me down because I wasn't prepared to hear where I knew I failed. I knew I failed not being there, but you don't really understand it until you hear it from your child. I have 3 sons. They all have brothers as well, so I have a lot of boys. I have a daughter who I have no relationship with because of my time incarcerated, and that impacts me as well. Also, I want to speak about systems really quick. When I came home, a lot of leaders like Glenn Moran and other leaders who came home found themselves in successful positions, but talking with Glenn, and he was like, when I came home, I had about $120,000 in child support that I owed. I still owe about $100,000. And that's because my child support payments were $500 a week during the time I was incarcerated. So that's about $2,000 a month, about $20-something thousand a year. It's pretty easy to rack up. So I come home to debt, to then be threatened to be reincarcerated again, which happened, right? And so these systems still divide my family while I'm still struggling to make up for that time. And I needed a medium because I seen every one of my comrades struggle with this who have children. And so I needed to personally sort of heal that space inside of me and try to tell my son that I was sorry and I missed their time. So from a personal and total selfish standpoint, I've been doing this and try to bring a therapy to heal my family. Check.
I appreciate you guys for taking the time out to come out tonight and hear us and give us the space to speak on, it's a really sensitive subject, you know what I mean? You spend a lot of time in life trying to put on an image and put on a facade, like, you're macho. From the environment that I come from, that's needed, you know what I mean? To have this sort of masculinity and have this image. But not having a father in my life was like one of the greatest impacts in my childhood. Like that really just messed up my childhood, and essentially, I had my father growing up from a young age, and in my adolescence period when I was developing into puberty and actually finding out who I was and discovering stuff, normal teenage stuff. When I needed my father, that's when he, got locked up and incarcerated. So I had this hate in my heart, like, what the fuck, you know what I mean? Like, I was pissed off, how could you do this? Like, you impacted your family. That was a selfish decision getting yourself incarcerated, you know. And when he came out, I didn't care. I didn't really care that he did all this time. I didn't care that, you know, the reason he was incarcerated was trying to take care of us, or whatever the reason was. I didn't really care. You know what I mean? I didn't care to have a relationship at all. And over time, just like growing, you know, actually having that presence that I needed and the father figure who I can go on and talk to, and, you know, just breaking down those barriers slowly but surely, going to him when I had problems and issues, it broke, like, it made our bond closer, you know what I mean? It made me understand. And I think that's the most important thing to do as human beings in this world, is to have understanding. And a lot of us don't have understanding. You know, we perceive things the way we want to perceive. We have judgments and perceptions. Everybody has different perceptions, you know what I mean? But when you just learn to understand things that you cannot, you know what I mean? That you, damn, I can't understand that, but you try to understand, just try to, you know? And that's what I did. And that allowed me to see so many greater qualities of my father, you know what I mean? That I hadn't seen before. And also, it helped me to learn a lot about myself, you know what I mean? So when you understand people, even random strangers in the street, when you learn to understand just everybody, you learn things about yourself, you know what I mean? And I think that's important in life. I think that's key, you know, not to have this sense of knowing it all, or perceptions, and like, but it's helped me to become better as a person, you know. So essentially, I'm gonna wrap it up with that.
Good evening. My name is Omar. I have a deep voice. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I arrived a little late today, but I'm here to support my brother and my father. My father did time previously incarcerated, and I feel that it has affected my childhood a lot. As a child, maybe about 10 to 12 years old, when I was looking for a father, you know, he wasn't in my life, and it may have impacted me in a way that I feel I could have grown more with a father presence in my life. I could have grown and developed and learned a lot of things that you can't learn alone, or even just having, you know, just your mother. There's certain things you can't talk to about, tell your mother, and having the absence of the other parent makes you curious about things on your own. You know, in school, I got into fights and things like that sometimes, and you have to stand up for yourself. You know, you can't, there's a lot of standing up for yourself when there's an absence that you have to fill. So, I just want to say that as the oldest brother of all my brothers, I have grown, let's say, a little bit independently, but I do give credit to my parents who have helped me to grow throughout the years. I value the time that I've had my father in my life as a child and as a later teen. Even as a later teen, my father coming home to see me graduate made me happy. You know, that made a difference for me, and that's about it. That'll wrap it up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carlos Evans. I was incarcerated for 13 years. This year makes the third year of my liberation. I want to bring it back a little bit. You know, I grew up with my mother, and my father and my mother really didn't get along. But on the weekends, I look forward to spending time with my father, my younger sister and I. And we would go to the park, he would play his music, he's a musician. And like, those days were everything to me. So it's ironic that I said to myself, because my mother kind of instilled it in me to always, take care of your children, for me to then put myself in a position to be away from my children. So I was incarcerated when my first two sons, Jamal and Genesis, were 8 and 6 years old, and I had a relationship with them thanks to my wife, Indira, and she always made sure that I spoke to them. She would bring them up to visit. We would have conjugal visits, and these were things that were important to me. But what I worried about was my ability to take care of them, which I couldn't do. Then my ability to kind of guide them and steer them the right direction, which was like an oxymoron to me, because how could I tell you to do your homework and don't join a gang and don't use drugs? Not saying that I was in any of those things, but I'm in prison. But I thank my wife for really raising them. And although I could tell them everything over the phone and we can talk on a visit, it's not the same as me being there. You understand? And I have to thank, this is probably the first time I'm saying it, I have to thank NYU, I have to thank Rachel, Tui, and Nigel for the after now. Because during the documentary, my sons were interviewed when I wasn't around. So they got to really express, they felt comfortable with Rachel to express how they really felt, things they would never say to me in my face. Not that they were afraid of me, but maybe they didn't want to hurt me. And I'll start with Jamal. He basically said, he felt that he had to take on the role of a father to his two younger siblings. And that really hurt me the first time I saw it. And he was able to express himself without me there, and that hurt as well, because this is something that I would want to hear from himself, and then I really can't make up the time, and there's really no explanation, but it was something that hurt me. And for my second son, Genesis, he said that he loved me, and he thought about me, but the fact of the matter is, he became an adult on his own. He had to figure life out on his own. And after the screening, Jamal is in Ohio, he lives in Ohio now. After the screening, he pulled me to the side. He said, "Dad, I wish I could have said some more things." I said, "What you mean by that?" He said, "No, I want you to know I love you." I said, "No, I know you love me by what you said." So, at me being here, I'm trying to figure out, all those 3 years, how to be a better husband, a better father, a better son, a better uncle, a better nephew, just a better person in society. And what people have to realize is, guys that were incarcerated, or anyone that was incarcerated, and have served their time and have grown and want to change, deserves an opportunity to change. And sometimes it takes us wanting to do it to motivate other people to understand and want to understand what we want now as opposed to what we had before. So thank you for this, Jose, a good one, and all the brothers on the panel.
So one of the things, right? Let's take a moment to really honor all the mothers, all the grandmothers, all the extended families, right, who are actually holding it down, right? And I think that's real. As someone who, again, my daughter was born 3 months after my incarceration, 3 months into my incarceration. I'd end up serving 9 years and miss the first 9 years of her life, right? And I think, let's also ground this conversation, because children who have a parent that's incarcerated are at greater risk for everything. Are at greater risk for incarceration, greater risk for substance use, greater risk for depression, greater risk for suicide. Whatever you can think of they're at risk for, right? So the fact that, we have children who are grown men now and then grown people, right, amongst us, that tells really the strength of our families and the strength of our communities, right? And something else too, I want you to think about, right? Prisons. When you think about prisons, even Rikers Island, right? Rikers Island. To get to Rikers Island, it's almost an all-day process, right? To get into Rikers Island. Prisons. The majority of folks that are incarcerated in New York State are from New York City, and the majority of prisons are upstate. So depending on where you're at, the ability for someone to see and maintain relations with your family is next to impossible. And that is intentional, right? I remember many a nights, like checking in with family, especially when I was up by Attica, right? They're getting on a bus at 12 o'clock at night from Columbus Circle to hopefully make it up at 8 or 9 in the morning for a visit. Or if they need to make a phone call, right, they're $25 for a half an hour phone call, right? So the ability for folks in these positions to maintain relationships is really impossible. It's really impossible. So I want you to really understand that the fact that we're having this conversation is really testament to, to the mothers, right? To the grandmothers, to everyone else that has been holding it down while we have been missing, right? And I think we really need to acknowledge that. So one of the things that we're talking about, right? And we should really, this is, obviously there's a part to this that's really sad, right? We're hearing a lot of trauma, right? A lot of trauma. There's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain. But what we're not talking about, there's also a lot of resilience and a lot of strength, right? And I know for me, again, thinking about the ways in which, my daughter's mom was able to maintain the relationship, with my daughter and myself, constantly sending letters, constantly, bringing her to visit, constantly, making sure that I was able to call, constantly making sure that I was aware of, birthdays and important things that was happening, right? So maybe let's speak about, for folks that may have a peer, may be going through something like this, right? May know of someone that's incarcerated, may know of a parent incarcerated. You yourself may be a child that's incarcerated, right? Let's talk about ways in which, we can somehow cope and deal and create relations, irrespective to that.
Professor Curry, I think it's really important what you were saying about the resilience of just the feminine side of our families and stuff like that. For one, I feel like the strength of Black women, my mother, and it's
Powerful.
10 times greater than anything I'll ever be. I grew up watching, my mom was my inspiration. That was my superhero, for real. For real. My mother, she just raised me to be everything I was. She shouldered a lot of burden, a lot of stuff, and she stayed strong through all of that. I feel like that gave her so much infinite wisdom, and still to this day I go, that's my guidance. But anyways, I feel like it's detrimental to understand how how prison systems in the United States really don't only incarcerate one person. They incarcerated my whole family. It's not my father who was only locked up. I was locked up too, as well. All the time that my father spent in jail, I spent in jail too, every day without a family, without a parent. You know what I mean? I felt like I was locked up too. A piece of me was gone. I didn't have a source to go to, a masculine source to go to. You know what I mean? And get the information that I needed, get the protection that I needed. I had to be my own protection. You know what I mean? It's like my brother said earlier. We had to learn a lot of things ahead of time. And a lot of things that we got into. It wasn't great, but we got through it. We learned life, and essentially it would have saved me a whole lot of pain. It would have saved me a whole lot of experience to have my father there to guide me. You know what I mean? To essentially come to the peace that I'm at today. You know what I mean? To be at the state of mind that I'm at today, and understand that you know, I don't have to lash out and I don't have to cause uproars and all this other stuff. I can find peace within myself. You know what I mean? It's very simple. You know what I mean? And it took a while, but it comes to that point, you know, where you have to realize for yourself. And I think that's, like you were saying, Kurt, it takes you to realize it for yourself.
Don't pass it yet. There's something I want to, you said something that's really powerful, right? And I think that, you know, when we talk about trauma, right, and we talk about like behavior, young black men specifically, their behavior has been so criminalized, has been so pathologized, right? And this is like, and we've negated their pain and suffering, right? That's what this is,
Absolutely.
right? Like this acting out because of, you know, the demonization of black men, right? I think like we need to talk about that. Like black men historically have been demonized and have been criminalized. So when we're seeing these behaviors that are indicative of hurt and pain and suffering, this acting out, right? It's like we don't even afford that, the degree of validation, right? We're seeing school systems, school to prison pipelines, right? Where, you know, young men, young women are in these schools and they're like, their trauma is being manifested in behavior, right? And yet no one is actually acknowledging it for what it is. So I think what you said was so powerful, right? There is so much, for folks that are doing like behavioral work in here, right? So much of this has been negated, right? Because it's just like you're a criminal, right? You're like, you know, all these other stereotypes that have been cultivated rather than actually seeing you as a young man that is actually hurting and is calling out for help.
That's an issue that I faced plenty of times in school. You know what I mean? I had a lot of behavioral issues in school, and really it was just like a plea, you know, it was like a call out for help and like understanding, essentially, you know what I mean? Because my teachers didn't know my father was incarcerated when he first got incarcerated. You know, they didn't know he was locked up. And I was having all these like uproars and like outbursts because I didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? I didn't know who to go to. I didn't know who to ask for guidance, and nobody cared to ask. You know what I mean? Nobody cared to even ask me what was going on. And there was a lot of kids my age too, or just different skin colors. You know what I mean? Who were acting out too. Tons of kids different lighter shades than me, and they were getting less. Like I witnessed it all the time in school. You know, I witnessed kids who get told, "Oh, be quiet," or this and that. But as soon as I lash out or I say something in class, I'm automatically getting sent to the principal's office. I'm automatically getting suspended if I get into a fight, while other kids are getting lesser detention sentences. You know what I mean? Maybe they're getting after school detention. I'm getting suspended for 3 or 4 days. I'm getting 20-day suspensions. You know, so I watched all these disproportions, and in my head, I'm like, "Damn, I'm a bad kid." Like, "Damn, I'm just a bad kid." But as I grew older, I just had to realize, like, I'm not a bad kid. Like, I was really intelligent. All my teachers said I was intelligent. You know what I mean? But it was my behavior. I was outspoken. I feel I was outspoken on a lot of things, and they didn't like that. You know.
Can I say two things, right? The system creates systems that keep us separated. One of the things is communication. You spoke about phone calls, right? I never called home because we didn't have the money for it. You know, here's his mom raising my 2 sons on her own. Like, what am I going to do? In charge of her, right? I'm going to ask her for a package? No. Visits. I was in Auburn, Attica, Coxsackie. Like, I was way upstate. There was no way. She's like, how am I going to go to work? The 2 kids in school. Like, this is not going to happen. So the divide. And I was on mail watch at one point in time when I was in solitary. So I would get my son's letters, like, oh, you don't write home. But mail watch is a system that when you mail out letters, they open your envelope, they scan it, and they put it into a file. So he would never get the letters from me, but I would get his letters like, you're not even writing back. Why am I wasting my time, right? So it divides the family. The other thing I want to try to bring into the subject of this room is the socioeconomic disenfranchisement of those post-incarcerated, right? Now I come home, I started going to school at Cornell. I had a job at Marshall's. Remember I was working at Marshall's, right? I'm trying to make it. I'm on parole for like a week. They're talking about violating me because I didn't show up. Let me tell you my exit. And a lot of people have a different exit from prison. So I'm in a cell and, you know, I try to make a joke out of it. Like, they came and said, well, you know, after the last decade, you've been talking about you haven't did it, you didn't do anything, you're innocent. Well, it turns out you're right. They just locked up the cops who locked you up. Here's $40, here's a bus ticket. Make it. I get dropped off right from solitary, 42nd Street, Times Square. You got Spider-Man fighting the Statue of Liberty. You got 20 million commuters. You got 20 million kids, because there's a kid rush hour too, from 2 o'clock on. And I had a panic attack. And I went to the hospital. Of course, they did a stress test, but I went to parole. They said, it's fucked up. You should have been here last week. Turn around, put your hands behind your back. And they sent me back to prison. So even though I was out to see my son graduate, I got violated and went right back to prison and maxed out in 2012. Come home, I got this little job. I'm making about $300 a week. You know what that $300 a week was? $100 for Omar, $100 for Shaquille, and I had enough to buy a Metro card to go back to work. And I was stuck in this sort of cycle until I tried to create an envelope. I mean, we still suffer and struggle to do this work, to do activism that doesn't pay, media doesn't pay, right? So you can see me on the White House, you can see me on YouTube, you can see me in a million articles. I'm not getting paid from that, right? The other thing is that you are struggling because now I'm talking to mom, and she's like, well, you missed like 12 birthdays, 12 graduations, you owe, right? So it's hard, and this is why people end up returning back to things that make them feel more comfortable, which could be crime or doing other things to get income to take care of their families. You know, and it hasn't put us in a place where we had time to heal. You know what I mean? I felt like I didn't have enough time with my sons. I didn't have enough time talking about this, or even relaying it to the other people who relate to it, saying, wow, I know what to expect when my husband or my son comes home, right? So I think the social economic conversation has to be involved, because the disenfranchisement felonies are forever, and you're forever disenfranchised from even making the change. I can't come home and buy graduation suits, right? I'm struggling to try to do that and get your shoes because I'm working at Marshall's, so come by and pick up a pair, and it furthers the gap. And I think that that's an important factor, that certain policies impact us as a family, you know?
Testing. Okay. So,
Take it back away.
question?
I mean, about being a big brother and having to
but speak to like what were some of the things as a big brother, right? And knowing your dad was incarcerated, right? What are some of the things, just maybe for folks that are in a similar situation, or may know of folks that are in similar situations? You know, what are some things that you were able to do to cultivate resilience, to make sure things were okay, you know, in that absence?
In that absence, I tried my best to be the best leader out of everybody. Not to say that I'm better than anybody, but I am the first. So
number one.
if I'm doing bad, you know, my mom's gonna say, "Oh, don't be like your brother," or something like that, you know? And that's the I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear my parents tell any of my other brothers, "Don't be like him." So that made me work hard. And as far as having the absence and it impacting the family, as my brother did say earlier, it kind of does lock everybody else up, because you have somebody who's locked out of the family, so they're not really, it affects everybody. It affects everybody.
I think moving forward as men was something, you know, as my son said to me, that we now have the ability to move forward on a different
Right.
page. So I think that sometimes we look for coping mechanisms, right? And sometimes we just have to realize that that time is gone, but we can create a new space, right now, like as men, as you know, as older men,
Right.
together.
I don't look back on my childhood with you know, pessimism or negativity or hate or you know, any kind of negative emotion in my heart. I look at it as learning, as a learning experience for my family.
Yeah,
As a father together.
I've been,
Together, man.
as a fuck, you know, I feel like I wouldn't change anything that I've been through, even though it was a lot, you know, even though I've been through a lot of turmoil, I wouldn't change anything that I've been through because it taught me so much. It taught me so much, and I don't think those lessons would be worth trading for, you know, just a little bit of experience. But anyways, it's great to, you know, so many things can happen in your past, and you can spend so much time every day, you know, dwelling on the past, like this happened, that happened. But we have to come to a point in our life where we only project the future, where we are living in here and now, where we are only focusing on the present and building and, you know, progressing. You know what I mean? And I felt like it just had to be, it had to happen, you know what I mean? Where you have to man up and you have to stop being a little kid and holding on to hurt feelings, and especially when you see that somebody wants to be in your life, you know, especially when you see that somebody's fighting so hard to be a part of your life and they're going out their way, you know what I mean? Because I would really be an asshole to my dad, to be honest with you, like, you know what I mean? I was just like, I don't care, like, you know, you're not existent to me, and he actually kept persistent. And I saw it, you know, and it's not like I didn't want him to, you know, I really did, but I was being a kid. I was being like, no, no. And then he was like, come here.
Can I add one thing? I just want to say that I think it's important that if you have family members who are incarcerated, or that it's important not to make them feel closed out. You know, be there, be supportive. They're still people, you know. So to disinclude them and to make them feel as if their problem and them being away is not a problem. You know, to say, oh, I don't care why you was arrested, or I don't care about why you did that, and I feel this way. You know, you weren't there for me. What about them? Who was there for them? Maybe when they're in the cell alone. You're out in the world, you know? So I feel it's important not to close them out of the family just because they serve time.
I have 3 sons. Jamal will be 24. Jen will be 22. Is it? Jamal will be 25. Jen will be 23. No. Jen will be 22. Jen will be 12.
She got it. That's the first thing.
I'm sorry. Okay. So the issue with me is, as I said, Jamal and Jen were 8 and 6 years old when I was incarcerated, and they were 21 and 19 when I was released. So that's a long time of them being out on their own. And although their mother did everything to raise them with morals, they still didn't have a father figure. And Jaden was conceived meanwhile I was incarcerated, and he was the only one that I didn't have hands-on time. So although Jamal and Jen were young, Jamal still had 8 years of me around, and Jen still had 6 years of me around. And I kind of, I was younger, but I always told them to follow your dreams, to do what you know is right, go to school. And they were able to, thank God, to navigate the streets. And they followed what they wanted to do. They didn't follow anyone. Jamal was, in a rock band playing bass guitar, and Jen is a skateboarder. And the guys on my block used to be like, your children are different, man. They walk by us, we don't mess with them. Jen's on a skateboard. They're not into drugs. They're not into gangs. They just different. I said, well, I told them to just follow what's in your heart, and I'm thankful for that. But with Jaden, I didn't have that time. So when I was released, he was turning 9, or he just turned 9, and these are years that I wasn't there. And I'm still trying to figure it out. It's not a fairy tale. I didn't have time with them, and they were younger. So when I came home, I was like, I was nervous. I was like, I can't tell them, hey, take out the trash, or do your homework anymore, because they're gonna look at me like, yo, what are you talking about? So I tried to, I spoke to Indeed. I'm like, yo, how do I speak to them? I don't want to be a stern father, but then at the same time, I don't want to be their friend. I want to find a balance. And she said, just take it easy. And I'm still trying to figure it out. And Jamal and Jen have moved out. They have their places and things like that. And I'm still struggling with my youngest one. So sometimes, when you think back, of you being inside. You say to yourself, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to be a better father, I want to be a better dad, a better husband. But then when you get out, people are saying, hey, you got to get a job. You know, you don't want to revert back to anything that could be detrimental to your freedom. So I have to find a job. I have to try to reconnect with my wife and my family members. I have to try to figure out what my place in society is. And I felt I was going to be nervous when I came home. I wasn't. And the brother said something that it hit me. I was released August 3rd, 2015. I was lucky to find employment like 2 weeks later. My friend hooked me up with a job, and I'm thankful for that. The year to the date, it's August 3rd, I was in the train, and I just felt the walls closing in on me. Out of nowhere, I started sweating, started panicking. So I was like, I found a piece of paper and I wrote down my wife's phone number. I'm like, listen, if I pass out, please call her. And I just couldn't figure it out. And I was like, I can't go to work. And I texted her and I said, listen, I don't know what's going on. And now I figured it out. I want to achieve so much. I can't get back the lost time. So all I can do is try to work with what I have now in order to show my children that I love them, you know? And I have to pace myself. It can't be done overnight. So what I say to myself now is I'm going to try to figure out a better way to connect with my son. I do want him to speak, because he's he's gonna have you cracking up. But this is my youngest son, Jaden, and I'm gonna ask him a question about. I'm quite sure he has. Trust me.
Jose.
Come here, Jaden.
Is there a chair there?
Yeah.
All right, so I just want you to say how it felt, you growing up. Meanwhile, I was in, Sing Sing and upstate, and how you felt and how it affected you.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
It felt like I really didn't have a relationship with you when you first came, and now feel that that's good to have.
Is it on? Oh yes. You guys gotta talk louder.
It's good to have you back. So, like Jamal said,
Let me see the other mic, please. You want me to hold the mic for you? Don't put your mouth on it, but just talk louder.
like Jamal said, he was a father figure to me when you were gone. So I didn't get to see you that much. So then that really made me feel a little like I didn't have nobody to look forward to, anybody to show me the pathway to being like a good person. So I only had two brothers and my mom to really push me to be a better person, to be a better kid, because soon I'm gonna grow up to be like a man, and I don't wanna have mistakes like I don't wanna do drugs. I don't wanna have to go to gangs. I just wanna be like a sympathetic person and to go to college and to have a good education. So I really am looking forward to spending more time with you.
How did you feel? How did you feel when you would go to your brothers, or that's not really what you wanted, or when you come on a visit and there's not enough time, or when we're on a trailer and we watch movies and you gotta go? How did those things make you feel?
Actually, it made me feel very proud because I only got to see you in trailers. those were the only times that, those were the only moments that I could spend time with you. So that really made me proud, and I really felt really sad because I didn't even get to know you. I didn't even know how to speak to you. So I really didn't even get to understand you when I was going to trailers. I only got to see you for 3 days, right?
48 hours
48 hours.
every 4 months.
Every 4 months. So that really made me feel. That really made me feel. It really made me feel sad.
It made you feel sad when you had to leave.
Yeah.
Do you remember? When was I in Franklin? 2013. Okay, so 2013. Well, first of all, I was in Sing Sing, and I have to get back to a couple of things that both of y'all said, because now it's coming back. I try to put that part of life behind me. I'm being honest, like I really do. I don't think about it anymore. I really don't, because it's not a part of me. It was a part of me, but I use that as a catalyst to try to be a better person. So, you know, but I want to get back to a couple of things. I was in solitary confinement. You know, I did 13 years. You know, I didn't use drugs. I wasn't in any gangs. I had like 1 or 2 fights. But I went to the box. They gave me 2 years in solitary confinement because I had a cell phone. And they considered, it was about 5 of us, we had laptops and cell phones, and it was like, listen, y'all guys are dangerous. They split us up, they sent us up by Canada, and they said, okay, you're gonna stay in the box for 2 years. And I'm like, 2 years? Like, did I hurt someone? They were like, no, you have a device which can, you know, you cause an escape or blah, blah, blah. And I understand where they're coming from now. But at the time, I'm like, wow. So just imagine being in a room about the size of here for 2 years. There were guys in there 15 years.
Yeah.
And I'm letting you know, I don't care what anyone says. When you don't have someone to talk to, they wouldn't. I asked for, you know, a bunkie, and they're like, no. I'm like, why? And they're like, because you had a cell phone. So they didn't know, you know, there was officers involved, guys got fired, the officer was 36 years, he was there. So they kind of held us all to us. They figured that we had too much power in Sing Sing, so they kind of just let us know. We make an example out of you. They said, you lucky we don't give you a new charge. But in solitary confinement, I had to find something in myself to withstand it, because the first thing they come to do is OMH comes to you, the Office of Mental Health. Hey, you know, we got some pills if you feel suicidal, or you know, you need someone to talk to, take this medication. And I'm like, no. So what I did was I did my law work. I read the Bible front to back, and I would write letters to my family. And the most important things were connecting with my children. And Jamal and Jen were the ones that were writing me back. Theodore would bring them. And just like you said, she would, at 10 p.m. Friday, she would get on the bus, it's a 7-hour ride, to spend 3-4 hours with me, and then 7 hours back. And she'll get home at 10 p.m. the next day. And this was something that she did my whole entire time incarcerated. And I asked her, I was like, how do you do it? She said, listen, I'm just trying to make it. It's about the children. And it would hurt me because I hear her stressing over paying the rent. I'm hearing her about the phone. Oh, the phones? Bro,
It's a whole nother.
one 30-minute phone call was $8.
Yeah.
And they just banned this in, I think, 2010, 2011.
That was on sale though, because
Yeah.
back in the day,
Yeah.
$30.
No, I know. Because I remember when my first month, she said, listen, you know, I love you. She's like, the phone was $800 in collect calls. I said, how's it $800 to collect calls? I call you once a day. She said, yeah, each call was about $9. So I'm like, how could they charge our families a $9 collect call when you can call collect to California for 2 hours and it's only about $3? But, you know, they fixed that. And then it's the thing with the mail. You know, sometimes mail wouldn't go out, sometimes we wouldn't receive mail. So it's kind of set up in a way for you not to be able to communicate with your family. You know, especially on Rikers or Brooklyn House, she said she would leave the house at like 10 a.m., have to sit on the bus, sit in the waiting room, dog smells her, 5-6 hours for her to come on a visiting floor for 1 hour. And then it takes 2-3 hours to get back out. So after a while, you know, I can't blame her for not wanting to visit or not wanting to visit, especially when they are dealing with all of these things by themselves. Because I'm being honest with you, if this was a visiting room, there would probably be 2 guys, and it might be a brother or uncle or grandfather. But the majority of the visitors that I saw, all of the time, were women. And they were the ones left to deal with taking care of that child or their husband or their son or their nephew. And as a father, it hurts to even hear what he just said. And I'm trying to figure out the best way. Like, I'm being honest, like, I would want to hear what anyone has to say, because I'm trying to connect with him. He's the youngest. I didn't have the connection with him the way I did with the elder brothers, you know. So it's like I'm coming out when he's 9, and I went in when the other 2 were close to 9. You understand? So it's like a connection that I'm trying to get, and I just need to know that I have to try harder.
I want to really say something before we kind of open it up for questions, right? So much of our ability to actually move beyond the system is exactly what we're doing right here today, right? Is actually talking about it. We can't begin to heal what you don't reveal. And for too long, these conversations have not happened, right? They're really difficult conversations. They feel really hard, right? I know for folks listening, it's tugging, right? It hurts. But we have to have these conversations, right? That's the only way we begin to heal. There's so much trauma in these spaces, right? There's so much trauma in these spaces. And until we begin to really sit with them, till we begin to look at each other and have those like really hard conversations, you know, that's the only way we begin to heal. So for folks that have been impacted by these systems, right, it's really integral that we think about like our own healing. It's really integral that we figure out, you know, how these systems have impacted us, right? How it's robbed us of our humanity, how it's robbed us of our presence and our love in our communities, right? And have these honest conversations to begin the process of healing. And no one knows what the right answer is, right? We just got to show up every day to try to figure it out and show up authentically, right? So I really want you to, really give it up for all like the honesty and the vulnerability that is expressed. Because oftentimes when, we talk about people who never recover from these systems, it's because they never have a chance to talk about it. They never have a space to feel supported. So many young men that are in these same situations, right? Where's your dad? My dad's in the army. My dad's away at school or something like that. You gotta lie, right? So it's like we never get an opportunity to really have these conversations in a real way. So like it's integral that we all really understand the impact of these systems and really begin the process of healing. So with that, I really want to open it up, right? Because again, there's so much knowledge here, there's so much wisdom here, and there's so much vulnerability and willingness to share. And it's important for folks, again, that are doing this work, that will do this work, that you begin to understand this in a deeper sense. So I really want to open this up. Let's ask questions. Let's try to keep the answers kind of short so we can kind of like really have, I think we have maybe half an hour, Jose?
Yeah, just about. Take your time, though.
Yeah, so let's really try to, get as many people as possible to kind of like take advantage of the knowledge and wisdom we have here.
Jose, you gonna pass the mic?
Make it work.
Yeah, make you work.
Speak up, my brother. I'm sure you got a loud voice, right?
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I have a few members of my family that were incarcerated. So I've been up to Sing, I've been up to Rikers. But like my thing is that many of you have spoke about is like moving forward and the strengths of, you know, older. So like, what are some things that you know do with your children or your nieces, your nephews, you know, about like, you know, staying positive and trying to keep them off that path of, you know, whatever you've been through?
He's not going to say it, so I'm going to say it. If you look up his name, Shaquille Mualim Ak, you'll see a whole list of videos, what he does. He does a lot of I Am 16 videos around Raise the Age. He also did a lot of videos that he produced media segments around children with incarcerated parents. And we did it with a woman who was trying to sort of organize, and he came, look, we're going to do this, we're going to cut to this segment, we're going to have this, we can shoot in front of the school. She was like, okay, you just produced the whole thing. So I think moving forward, working together, trying to address the issues that he felt at that time, because I can't speak for what he went through going through the school and prison pipeline, right? Him working, living in the school, going through it day by day. I can imagine what my daughter goes through. You know, me and her have no communication. And I can imagine what his younger brothers go through and what his older brother went through. But until he took the time to actually be that voice for other youth too, I didn't really understand it, right? So I think working together, moving forward, and me giving him the platform that he can speak about what his experiences was. And even like I did the story core with my son, it allowed me to then show other father and sons that you can have these conversations, right? And that it can be a safe space. It is a hard, dangerous space. You're gonna hear the criticism. You're gonna hear everything we didn't think about in detail. The other thing is, when I was incarcerated, you know, I seen a lot of youth and I seen a lot of my son's friends, young kids, young boys, and I'm like, you know, I hate to see the day that my son has to go through this door, or he can come through this door. So I think moving forward together, finding a positive thing that you can do together and spending time together. Like we're Marvel, I'm a nerd, so like we do every Marvel movie. Even though we just was kind of broke, so we just watched Black Panther, but and my son, Omar doesn't like that movie now because I watched it like 80,000 times. But, so, you know, finding those little times, you know what I mean? I love the fact, I'm gonna just shout her out, that's my daughter-in-law right over there. And I feel like I told her I'm taking her to court for custody of my son. She's taking my son away. You know, I'm scared of her because she may be the one. I'm not a grandfather yet. It's not about them. It's about me. I'm not old enough to be a grandfather. But even that, I'll just text him in the middle of the day, like, hey, hope you're doing. Hope you're having fun. I just want to let you know it's not about you. It's about me.
But I think it's detrimental, like you said, and to focus on what we can do presently, you know, and focus on I watched my father come from nothing. Like I watched my father do a whole bunch of bad shit like that, you know, and go through the prison system. I'm like, oh, you know, you should be there. You know, I condemned him, and then I watched this man literally take that same energy and conform it and say, yo, I want to do this. I want to, like, as soon as he came out of prison, I want to speak on this shit. I want to speak on what's happening. I want to speak on, you know, the prison system, and I want to expose this. And he told me, like, when he came out, you know, he wants to go to universities, he wants to go this and that. And I watched this man do it. I watched him manifest everything that he said, and that was inspiration for me to manifest what I want and to know, to take what I want, you know, and know that it's possible. So I feel like it has to start with you, you know, it has to start from a place of healing, us actually talking to one another, you know. We sometimes we alienate our family members who come home from jail, like, damn, you went to jail, you can't do nothing no more, you're not of use to me or anything like that. But we need to understand that this is still our family, you know. These people are way more useful than we can even imagine, you know. They don't disenfranchise anyone.
I agree with you guys. I spend time with my father a lot now. I watch him play Fortnite, Destiny. I watch like comedies with him sometimes. And that's like the little moments that you need in your life if you don't even have your dad for 13